Hello dear student, myself Professor Ashok Kumar and I am working in Department of Mechanical Engineering at Dr. Subhash Technical Campus. First of all, you are welcome to my video lectures, and this time we are going to discuss chapter number 5, gears, and this chapter comes in subject kinematics and the theory of machine. Generally, this subject comes during the 5th semester degree mechanical engineering. So, due to the content of this chapter is very large, I have divided this entire lecture in 5 video lectures. So, today we are going to discuss this video lecture in some initial portion that we will discuss on it. So, this video lecture will be the part 1, and in which we will specially discuss on an introduction of gears, types of gears, various terminology, and at the end we have the types of gear train that are being used for the power and motion transmission that we will discuss. Actually, generally gear drive or positive drive or mesh drive or even chain drive, the basic concept behind all the drive is to transmit motion and power. Some instant where you will see that, for example, in case of our automotive vehicle like two-wheeler bike, we are using chain drive for the purpose of power as well as motion transmission. So in place of gear, we are using sprocket there. From the driving sprocket, the power and motion is being transmitted to driven sprocket by using a chain. Generally, whenever the distance between driving and driven shaft is little bit more as compared to driving gear drive, at the time chain drive is preferred to use over gear drive. And for that only 3 components are there: driving and driven sprocket, and on the outer periphery of both of the sprocket there is a chain which is passing over it, and it will in that way connect both of the sprocket. Once you are rotating driving sprocket, the power is being transmitted to driving sprocket to chain, and ultimately chain passes to the periphery of driven sprocket, and in that way driven sprocket is being mounted on driven shaft. So driven shaft gets rotated, or ultimately we can say that the driven shaft is getting the power and required motion. It's not necessary always that the chain drive is always used in specific automotive vehicles, but in some machinery we are also finding its application. But chain drive, or even we can say that the gear drive, are generally known as a positive drive or mesh drive, because in such type of drive, whether it is chain drive or gear drive, there is no any kind of friction or no any kind of losses regarding the power or motion transmission. That's why it is also known as a positive drive or mesh drive. Over here, the power over the motion is being transmitted by virtue of meshing of the various components like gear and chain, gear with pinion. So over here, power transmission is possible by assembling of such a machine links like chain and sprocket. That's why it is also known as a mesh drive. Now, if we are talking especially about gear drive, then before going for the further analysis, it's very important to discuss the terminology which is related with particular gear. Look at the screen. You have given 2 teeth which is cut on the outer periphery of gear wheel, and there are numbers of terminology that you have given, like pitch circle diameter, pitch point, module is also there, circular pitch, diametrical pitch, addendum circle, dead and lots of. So we are going to discuss one by one that particular terminology. First one is the pitch circle. Generally, it is an imaginary circle on gear, and through which a pure rolling action would be transferred the same motion and power as the actual gear. Look at the screen. The pitch circle, or we can say that the pitch circle diameter is drawn to the middle portion of the tooth height, and This circle is generally known as a pitch circle. After that, there is a pitch circle diameter. So it is the diameter of pitch circle itself. It is known as a pitch circle diameter. Now pitch point. It is the common point of contact between two pitch circle of mating gears. For example, suppose you are finding any common point which connects the two pitch circle of two mating gears. So that will be the pitch point of that particular meshing drive. After that, there is one more important term that being used widely and frequently, that is module. Generally, it is the ratio of a pitch circle diameter to the number of teeth on the gear. Module is generally ratio between pitch circle diameter and whatever the numbers of teeth that are cut on the outer periphery of the gear. If you are taking that ratio, you will have the module. Generally, a module have some standardization that is given, like module should be like 1 to 1.25 to 16 and 20. More than 20, you are getting the module. But it's especially depends on which type of the drive in which you are using your gear and especially gear train. On the basis of application, you can decide the module numbers, either it should be selected 1 or 16 or 20. After module, there is a circular pitch. One more terminology, that is circular pitch. Generally, it is circular distance and which is measured along the circumference of the pitch circle from a point on one tooth to the corresponding point on the adjacent point. That means just you have to measure the distance between 2 points on a similar basis between two consecutive or nearby teeth. And if you are measuring the distance, it will be known as a circular pitch. After that, very similar to circular pitch, there is a diametral pitch. So it's simply ratio of number of teeth to the pitch circle diameter to the we can say that the diameter of the pitch circle. So diametral pitch generally represent actually ratio between numbers of teeth and the pitch circle diameter. So equation of the pitch circle diameter P suffix D will become T, that is number of teeth, and upon diameter, that means pitch circle diameter. After that, there is an addendum. Addendum generally refers the radial distance of tooth from the pitch circle to the top of the tooth. That will be the addendum. Similarly, addendum circle is the circle which is drawn through the top of the teeth, which is concentric to the pitch circle diameter. So that means over here, addendum and addendum circle, they are very similar. If you are talking about addendum, then it is the radial distance that you have to measure from the pitch circle to top of the tooth, and addendum circle, if you are talking about, then you have to draw just a circle from the top of the teeth. That will be your addendum circle. Similarly, there is one more kind of terms, that is dedendum. And dedendum is also a radial distance, but there is a little bit difference between addendum and dedendum. Dedendum refers the radial distance between pitch circle to the root or the bottom of the tooth. That will be your dedendum. And whatever the circle you are drawing from the root or the bottom, or we can say that the base of the tooth, that circle will be known as a dedendum circle. Now then after addendum and dedendum circle, there is a clearance. Generally, clearance is the radial distance between the top of the tooth of one gear to the bottom of the tooth of another mating gear. That is known as a clearance. Suppose you are finding the distance or the radial distance between top of one mating gear and bottom of one other mating gears. So there will be a little bit small gap that is being you will find, and that gap will be known as a clearance. After that, one more term, that is the total depth. It is the radial distance between top of the tooth to the bottom of the tooth. That means it covers both of the addendum and dedendum. If you are summing up both of addendum and dedendum, you are getting total depth. Then after working depth, it is also a radial distance from addendum circle to the clearance circle. That means there is a little difference as compared to total depth. If you are measuring working depth, then just you have to measure the radial distance from addendum circle to the clearance, up to clearance circle only. Then after there is a tooth thickness. It's very simple to understand. It is width of the tooth and which is measured along the pitch circle. If you are measuring the width of tooth on pitch circle, then that will be known as a tooth thickness. Then after tooth space, it is the space between two adjacent tooth measured along the pitch circle. That means tooth space. Look at the diagram, you can easily understand. Whatever the width that you are measuring on pitch circle between two nearby tooth, that will be known as a tooth space. And finally, that is the backlash. So it is just the difference between a tooth space and a tooth thickness. Whatever that difference between tooth space and tooth width you are getting, that will be the backlash. And again, it will be measured along with the pitch circle diameter. After that, there is a face of tooth, and it is generally a surface of the gear above the pitch circle. So whatever the face or the surface that you are looking exactly above the pitch circle, it will be known as a face of the tooth. Similarly, flank of the tooth. So whatever the surface is given exactly below the pitch circle diameter of that tooth, that face or the surface of tooth below that particular pitch circle diameter will be known as a flank of the tooth. Finally, fillet, and fillet is the curved portion which joins tooth flank and the root circle. If you are joining tooth flank and we can say that the root circle, it will be nothing other than the fillet or fillet radius simply. Then after, finally, that is the top length, and it is the surface at the top of the tooth, and that will be the top length. So dear student, this is the few terminology which are related with gear geometries, and each terms have its specific relation for the designing purpose and design criteria. So majority of the terminology which are identified from the pitch circle. So we can say that the pitch circle is the very much important terminology through which remaining all the terms either it will be measured or identified for the measurement, or we can say that calculation of the other criteria. After that, it's time to have discussed on the various types of gears that are being widely used for the motion as well the power transmission. Actually, if we are talking about the classification, then all kind of gears are basically classified based on three primary categories. Number one, you can classify gears according to the position of shaft axis, whether shaft axis are parallel, intersecting, non-parallel. As per the criteria, you can classify various gears. Second criteria, according to the peripheral velocity of gears, you can also classify the types of gears. And third one, according to type of meshing gears, you can have also classification of the various gears. So first and most important gear, that is the spur gear. Look at the screen. And generally, this type of gear are specially used when the axis of two shafts are parallel to each other, and these gears have the teeth parallel to the axis of the shaft. Look at the diagram. Shaft axis is parallel to each other, on which both of the spur gear are mounted. And one more thing, the axis on which the teeth is cut is also parallel to the shaft axis. This is the specific characteristic of a spur gear. Generally, spur gear are very simple in construction, very easy to manufacture, and having the very less cost. That's why it finds its wide application for the different machineries and devices. Generally, it has the highest efficiency and excellence in precision rating. They are used in high speed and high load application in all type of gear trains and a wide range of velocity ratio, where we frequently require to change the speed. We have the possibility to change in velocity ratio, or their spur gear can be preferred to use. So generally it's used in clocks, household gadgets, motorcycles, automobile vehicles, and of course railway aircraft. So spur gear are effectively used. After that, very similar to that of the spur gear, that is helical gear. There is a little bit difference between spur and helical gear. Generally, helical gears have the teeth are at some angle, and that angle is known as helix angle, which is measured with respect to axis of the shaft on which this helical gear are mounted. Generally, helical gears are used for the parallel shaft drives. That means if two shafts have the parallel axis, at that time you can use helical gears. Also, helical gear have teeth inclined to the axis, so for the same width, their teeth are longer than the spur gear. And load carrying capacity of helical gear is very much high as compared to the spur gear. And contact ratio, if you are talking about the contact ratio, then it is very higher as compared to spur gear too. So this is some comparison between spur gear and helical gear. Helical gear, whenever we are using for the power and motion transmission, it not produce any kind of noise, because there will be a point contact in place of the line contact which is produced in spur gear. So it's noiseless operation, so transmission of load is gradual, and in that way such helical gear find its application in modern gearbox, or we can say that the power transmission assembly. Generally, helical gears are recommended to use in very high speed and load, and of course it is the only reason why this type of gear find its wide application in automobile gearbox. Of course, a few advantages are also related with helical gear, and that is that it include axial thrust. That means while you are transmitting power by using helical gears, unbalanced force of course produce, and which cause more vibration and maybe the possibility to damage some connected mechanical parts. So this is some disadvantage, but of course side thrust can be totally removed by introducing herringbone gears. Look at the bottom side figure. Herringbone gear basically a kind of the simple helical gear, but over here there is introduction of two bevel gear, one same face width of the helical gear. So ultimately what happens, whenever two opposite bevel gear profile are cut on the same outer periphery of that particular gear wheel, the thrust produced by either profile of the helical gear will be nullified by the other same profile of helical gear. So in that way you can have the side thrust nearly equal to 0 because of the opposite helical profile that is cut on the same peripheral surface of the gear wheel. Generally the load carrying capacity of double helical gear, or we can say that herringbone gear, is very high, but there is a little bit difficulty for the manufacturing, and its application are limited to high capacity reduction drives like cement mills, crushers, etc. So this is what about helical gears, double helical gears or herringbone gears. You can see that the axis is parallel. Of course there is an helix angle through which the teeth are being cut, which is measured from the axis of the shaft. Bottom figure shows the real application, wherein there is a machinery in which specially herringbone gear are mounted and used. There is basically a gear train of herringbone gear, and which is used to transmit power from driving to driven shaft. After that there is a spiral gear that we are going to discuss. Spiral gear is very similar as that of we can say that helical gear, except there is a little bit curvature cut. Teeth is cut in curvature form. Profile of teeth is in curvature. That is the basic difference between spiral bevel gear or simple spiral gear and bevel gear. Generally, teeth are formed at an angle with respect to its axis, and the contact between the two meshing teeth of spiral bevel gears is gradual and smooth from start to end. So this is an advantage if you are using spiral gear. Engagement and disengagement is very important for the power transmission. So this engagement and disengagement is maintained in continuous and gradual way. So we can say that there will be no any kind of jerk or the vibration that being produced while you transmit motion and power by using spiral gear. Generally, spiral gears are used for the transmission of power between intersecting shaft. Intersecting shaft is the very important word here. See, in previous both of the gears like spur gear and helical gear, the prime condition was that both of the shafts must be parallel. But in some specific application where you need to transmit the power to two shafts which are mounted with some intersecting manner, that means both of the shafts intersected at common points, at that time no longer you can use spur or helical gear. At that time you have to go for the spiral gear. So this is special advantage that whenever there is an intersecting shaft and you require to transmit power, you should to use spiral gear. Now generally it is operate in a very smoother way that we have discussed, and efficiency, if we are talking about spiral bevel gear, is a little bit less as compared to bevel gear that we have discussed. Generally spiral gears are used especially in automobile sector, wherein the noise as well as the side thrust that is being produced plays vital role. Especially if we are talking about modern automotive vehicle, then we can see that whenever you are riding a car or even bike, you feel that there is nothing like the noise. So if you are using spiral gear, because of gradual engagement and disengagement and the profile of that teeth curve in spiral, or we can say that the curve shape, this happens. So and it result into quiet operation. There will be no any kind of side thrust or the noise that is being produced while you transmit motion or the power from driver to driven shaft. And this is the essential and predetermined requirement for any automobile or even any machinery, that during operation may be the power transmission like motion transmission, or even you are using same gear set in your machinery. At that time prime condition is always that there should be no any kind of noise or any kind of side thrust or unbalanced force which is being produced. So this condition is satisfied if you are using spiral gear. Below figure you can see that is the real physical model of a spiral gear. You can see from the figure that the entire peripheral cylinder are curved in such a way that the teeth have look like the curved surface, and as you move from left to right hand side, the curve becomes so curved at the end. So ultimately it will form entirely teeth surface form like the spiral shape. Then after, it is very important types of gear that we are coming across, that is the bevel gear. And you might have seen a number of places wherein such type of bevel gear are widely used. For example, you have seen that in case of differential of an automobile, in case of we can say that the dam or opening or closing, in such a places such type of bevel gears or pair of bevel gears are widely being used. Generally there are two types of bevel gears. One is straight teeth bevel gear and other is the spiral teeth bevel gear. Top figure shows the straight teeth bevel gear, whereas bottom figure shows the curved teeth bevel gear. Generally in straight bevel gear teeth which are formed on straight on the cones or the surface and which are parallel to the axis of the gear. one more thing about the bevel gear is that it can be only and only applicable whenever two shaft, either it may be the driving shaft or the driven shaft, having the perpendicular relation between each other. At that time we can use the bevel gear. So in previous all three types of gears, like spur gear or even spiral gear or even helical gear, they are not used when both of the shaft have the perpendicular relation, but bevel gear satisfies the condition if the two shafts have the perpendicularity and you require to transmit motion and power. Of course, bevel gear can be used, and by using that bevel gear you have the motion and power transmission. So in straight bevel gears, generally it is used for the transmission of power between intersecting shaft, and of course as both of them have the perpendicularity relation, it will intersect at common points. So we can say that the shaft which have the intersecting points, or the shaft which are intersecting with each other, at that time we can use bevel gear. Generally bevel gear can operate under high speed and high load. This is the special advantage, and its precision rating is very good and very fair. They are generally specially used for the automobile sector, wherein we require to transmit the power from the propeller to rear axle. At that time we should be used for the bevel gears. Generally after that straight bevel gear, look at the bottom diagram. You are finding the spiral bevel gear. By comparing both of that particular diagram, one can easily understand what is the key difference. And the key difference is that in case of straight bevel gear, the teeth cut in straight way, means parallel to the axis of the shaft on which bevel gear is mounted. But in case of spiral gear, the teeth that is cut on the cone of that particular cylinder having the curve shape. So this is the basic difference. If we are talking about the operational difference, then curved bevel gear or spiral bevel gear gives the gradual engagement and disengagement as compared to the straight bevel gear. Secondly, curved bevel gear or spiral bevel gear have the point contact, whereas in case of a straight bevel gear it has the line contact. So ultimately it gives lots of the difference. Spiral bevel gear have the very noise free operation as compared to straight bevel gear, whereas the load carrying capacity, we can say that load carrying capacity of straight bevel gear is very much high as compared to straight bevel gear. So this is the simple basic difference. Generally spiral bevel gears are also used for transmitting power between the intersecting shaft, and because of spiral profile of tooth, the contact length is more and contact ratio is more, so they operate smoother than the straight bevel gears, and of course the loading capacity is also somewhat higher. Generally both of the bevel gear, either straight bevel gear or we can say that the spiral bevel gear, find its application based on the requirement, whether the load is required to transmit in high magnitude, or where is the prime condition is the noiseless and vibrationless operation that you require. So based on that different requirement, both of the gear, either straight bevel gear or we can say that the spiral bevel gear can be used. Now after that there is one more types of gear, and that is worm and worm wheel. Look at the diagram. Generally basically there are two parts. Entire worm and worm wheel is divided in two main components. One is known as a worm and other is the worm wheel. Generally it is also used to transmit power from one shaft to another shaft, but which are non-intersecting and their axes are normally right angle to each other. This is the specification or specific condition where we can use the worm and worm wheel. Suppose you are finding two shafts having a non-intersecting and perpendicularity relation. At that time you require to transmit motion and power, you should to go for worm and worm wheel. Generally it offers large speed reduction ratio up to 100 Jem1. That means Suppose you require to lower down the velocity at the end, that means the velocity ratio, if you require to lower down, and at that time you have to use that particular gear drive, then you should the worm and worm will offer the lowest velocity ratio among all types of gear or gear assembly. Generally, worm and worm wheel pair consist of worm, and it is very similar to like a screw, and worm wheel, it is the kind of helical gear. So ultimately over here, screw and helical gear both are mesh and generally known as a worm and worm wheel. Generally, worm and worm wheel used in right angle spool shaft, and particularly without any kind of shock, it transmits the motion and power transmission. This is specific characteristics of worm and worm wheel. Generally, sliding action prevalent in the system while resulting in fighter operation produce considerable frictional heat. This is also one more advantages if you are using worm and worm wheel. Generally, efficiency range of this type of assembly, or we can say that worm and worm wheel, ranges between 14 to 90%, and higher speed ratio gears are non-reversible. Generally, if you find its application, then there are numbers of instances where we can use worm and worm wheel. Suppose you require to open some doors, some machine component, you should to go for the worm and worm wheel. For example, suppose you want to lock or even unlock the door, or we can say that the door that is mounted nearby the dam of river, at that time you should to go for the worm and worm wheel. Basically, in some agricultural machinery, you are finding the same assembly of worm and worm wheel, wherein hand operated worm will rotate worm wheel, and ultimately worm wheel will cause to lower or rise the load that is mounted with that particular driven shaft. So ultimately we can say that not only for the power and motion transmission this type of the worm and worm wheel assembly is being used, but in order to carry or lift or even load down the loads that you require to transmit from one place to other place, worm and worm wheel assembly is effectively being used. After that, there is one more types of gear, and that is rack and pinion. Generally, rack and pinion is a very special case of a spur gear, and in which one gear is having infinite diameter. It is known as a bolt. It is known as a rack, whereas other mating gears or gear wheel is simply a spur gears. So look at the diagram. Bottom rack that you are looking for, it is having the infinite diameter. On that particular rack on top surface, there is a straight teeth are cut, and these teeth are perfectly matching with the gear wheel which is mounted exactly above that rack, and generally that gear wheel is known as a pinion, or we can say that it is a kind of spur gear. So by looking at assembly, we can say that it is widely used for the transmission of the rotary motion into reciprocating motion, or even reciprocating motion to a rotary motion. You might have seen that in case of in case of drilling machine, we are using this type of assembly. While you rotating hand wheel, the entire toolbox, and we can say that tool head will move in downward and upward direction. So by carefully watching that pillar of that drilling machine, there is simply rack and pinion assembly is there. So this is the specific application you can find in drilling machine too. But one more thing that I would like to inform you is that it's not necessary always that the teeth what the cut on the outer periphery of rack and pinion is always in a straight way. That means always there is a spur gear and spur wheel is there. No, you may also use the cow teeth, or we can say the spiral teeth for the assembly of rack and pinion. In order to have the smooth operation, of course you should to go for the spiral teeth, and which are cut on outer or top surface of rack, as well as you can also use the wheel, spiral wheel, for this conversion of rotary motion to reciprocating motion. By doing so, you will have the noiseless and vibrationless operation. So rack and pinion can be further classified based on which type of the teeth that are being cut on the outer surface of particular wheel and top surface of rack. Either if you are cutting the straight teeth, it will be known as we can say that the spur gear or straight teeth, rack and pinion. If you are using curved or spiral teeth, then it will be known as a helical tooth rack and pinion. After that, we are going to discuss on the gear train. Basically all that type of gear train I have already discussed in my previous video lecture. Special chapter is there, gear trains. But let's see in conclusion way. Basically gear trains refer to the numbers of assembly of gear which are connected with each other, and in that way it will be generally known as a gear train. So basically there are 4 types of gear train. Look at the screen. First type of the gear train, that is very simple and widely used, that is a simple gear train. Look at the diagram. There are 4 different diameters of gears are mounted which mesh with each other. But specific condition of this type of simple gear train is that each and every shaft carries only one gear wheel. This is the prerequisite condition in order to use the simple gear train. Secondly, look at the direction of rotation of the each and every gear. Driving gear A, if you are using intermediate gear in even number, that means 2, 4, 6, 8, of course you are getting the opposite direction of rotation of driving gear A and driving gear D. But in place of introducing even numbers of intermediate gear, if you are using odd numbers of intermediate numbers, odd numbers as a intermediate gears like 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, so you will get the same direction of rotation of driving gear A and driving gear D. All that gear train helps to transmit the power and motion from driving shaft to driven shaft, because it's not necessary always that the driving source and driven source both are very close with each other, especially in industry, in workshops, in machineries, wherein we require to transmit power and motion from one place to far away, the longer distance the driven shaft is there, and we require to transmit power. At that time you should to use this type of gear train. After that there is a compound gear train. It is very similar as that of the simple gear train, but there is a one change, one difference is there, and difference is that by carefully watching you can see that whatever the intermediate shaft is mounted over here, it carries 2 gears. In case of simple gear train, each and every shaft carries only 1 gear, but in case of compound gear, especially in intermediate shaft, there are 2 gears, whereas the driving and driven shaft carries only 1 gear. So over here motion and transmission will take place like that. Driving gear transmits its power to intermediate gear C, and as we know that gear C and B are mounted on same shaft, so when gear C rotates, of course gear B will also rotate, and once again gear B is directly messing with the gear D, so gear B will transmit its motion and power to gear D. So in that way we can transmit the power and motion from gear A to gear D. One more thing that should be discussed herein is that the direction of rotation of driving gear and driven gear is same, but either simple or even compound gear train can be only and only used whenever the axis of all the shaft over which the all different gears are mounted have the parallel relation with each other. Then and then we can say that the compound gear train can be used. After that there is a reverted gear train. There is a little bit difference between a simple compound with the reverted gear train. Suppose some places where you required that driving gear and driven gear will rotate on the same axis, or we can say that the same plane. At that time you just go through reverted gear train. Look at the diagram. There is a driving gear A which is mounted or messing with the intermediate gear B. Once again, intermediate gear B and intermediate gear C both are mounted on same shaft, that means intermediate shaft. And gear C, that means intermediate gear C, is directly messing with the driven gear D. So over here, if you are looking carefully, then on same axis of shaft, gear, that means driving gear and driven gear are mounted. So ultimately, if you are rotating and transmitting power A to B, then it will transmit directly due to intermediate shaft to gear C, and again C will transfer its motion and torque to gear D. In that way, we can have the power transmission by using reverted gear train. One more thing over here also, as that what we have discussed in case of previous types of gear train, the compound gear train, the direction of rotation of driving as well driven gear are in same plane and same direction. So it may also gives the specific application wherein we require the same direction of rotation of driving as well as driven shaft. And second condition is that both of the driving and driven gear should be mounted on the same axis or same plane. At that time we should use reverted gear train. After that, very much important types of gear train we are going to discuss, that is an epicyclic gear train. There is little bit difference between epicyclic gear train and those who have already discussed in previous slide. Look at the diagram. Basically, epicyclic gear train consists of two gears. One is known as a sun gear, another is a planetary gear. So both of the sun gear is mounted on a fixed fulcrum O1, and planetary gear, that is gear J2 over here, that is mounted on fulcrum O2. Now both of the gears, sun gear G1 and planetary gear G2, are combinedly mounted by using arm C. So if you give any directional or any rotation to arm A, along with arm A, gear G2 is always rotate about and around the gear G1, that means sun gear. So this is the specific application in which the epicyclic gear train, in which the shaft is rotating, one shaft of the gear is rotating about other shaft that is totally mounted on fulcrum. So this is the special case. If we are talking about previous types of gear train, then we have seen that all the shafts on which the gears are mounted are fixed. There will be no any kind of relative motion between the shaft with each other. But in case of epicyclic gear train, you can see that you can also rotate arm, you can also rotate gear G2. But gear G1, that is sun gear, that is of course fixed with the fulcrum O1. So over here arm along with the gear G2, or we can say that the planetary gear, is also rotating. So this is little bit flexibility that offers by an epicyclic gear train. And similar this epicyclic gear train find its application in automobile differential gearbox too. So this is what about an epicyclic gear train. So dear student, this video lecture in which we have specially discussed on gears, its introduction, types of gears, and at the end we have also discussed about the various types of gear train that are being used widely in various places. Still you are finding any difficulty, let me inform, we have the solution. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you very much.